All right, looks like we have some really awesome questions from the people who are just joining in. So once again, thank you if you've just logged into the virtual meetup. Please head over to slido.com. This is where we're going to have some polls and our question and answers, and use the hashtag Earth Engine to get to this page. So we want to thank you once again for all your awesome questions. And right now we're going to head over to find out more about you. So I'm going to give everybody a couple more seconds to put in what you want to learn from our session today, but then you'll also get the chance to ask more specific questions later on during the Q&A session. So I'm going to switch over now to the next poll. So our first question is, where are you joining us from today? So we want to see, please share where you are so we get a sense of who's in the room. Wow, this is really exciting. Looks like we have people from everywhere. Italy, Ghana, USA, Australia, Canada, the Netherlands, anyone from Asia or South America, Central America? Indonesia, awesome. Tel Aviv, Israel. Nice, looks like we are a really diverse group of people today. So our next question is, what career level would you say you are at right now? So our options are early career, so you might be an analyst, or if you're a software developer, maybe a junior developer, or do you consider yourself like mid-career? Maybe you have a bit more experience, you're managing people, or you are more of a senior role in your company or institution. Are there any senior executives out there? Are you, at the top of your career? Maybe you are leading a division or leading an organization, or somewhere in the upper management. Yes, looks like most of us here in the room are in the early career, so that's great. We get to hear from you what your questions are. And then about 25%, 26% are mid-career, and then really just a few people are senior executives. Nice. So thank you very much. I hope you all got a sense of how to use Slido. Now we will officially begin the session. So let me move over to our presentation here. So hello again, everyone. I will introduce myself now. I'm Sabrina Szeto, and I'm a geospatial consultant based in the Munich area in Germany, although I'm currently at a different place in Germany at the moment. I'm really excited to welcome you to this workshop, and I'd like to introduce Julia Wagemann, who is my co-host and co-moderator. Julia, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, and also a warm welcome from my side. Yes, sure. Thanks, Sabrina. My name is Julia Wagemann. I'm co-founder of Women in Geospatial together with Sabrina and others. And I'm also a consultant, a geospatial consultant based in Germany and Italy. And I'm also a PhD candidate at University of Marburg in Germany.
So we're going to begin by introducing you a little bit to what women in geospatial is, and then we will introduce our wonderful speakers, Dr. Lola Fatoyinbo, Abena Asare-Ansah, and Keiko Nomura. And then we will head into a panel discussion. And after the panel discussion, you'll get a chance to ask questions using our Q&A platform Slido, where you were just now. And then we'll just have a bit of time for closing remarks at the end before we say goodbye. Hopefully we stay in touch after that. So this is just a really quick overview for what to expect from our session today. Julia, would you like to introduce Women in Geospatial?
Yes, okay, thanks, Sabrina. I also already saw that someone wrote that you would like to get to know women in geospatial better and what we do. And this is exactly what we do now. We would like to let you know our activities and also why we do what we do. And one of our missions is that we want to change the status quo and the current situation in the geospatial field. And one of the ways we think to do so is to create a strong network of women in geospatial leaders and also change makers. And this is everyone, so this includes everyone that is today here in the webinar, and every woman and person from an underrepresented gender background can be part of this network. If you go to the next slide, yes, so we started in March 2019 with a simple call on Twitter to see if there is interest in forming a network specifically for women plus working in the geospatial field. And from this call in March 2019, for now a bit of 1.5 years later, we just had we just celebrated our, or we have now more than 2,000 people registered for the network. And this is a global network, so it's all over the world. And important is also that women in geospatial is free to join. So we really want to be inclusive and not exclusive. And so everyone, every woman plus working in the geospatial field is free to join our network. If you go to the next slide. We do a range of activities, and which we're quite proud of that we were able to establish so far in the past 1.5 years. And our activities are on 4 different pillars. So one pillar is community building. And this includes mainly our Slack channel, and also we run a mailing list where we inform about activities we do, but specifically the Slack channel, which is women plus only, which is supposed to be a safe space where we can discuss on different topics. Then we also run events. So one example is today. So we used to run also events in person, and we also really hope that at one stage we are able to also run events in person and also meet others and meet you again. But for now, for the time being, and also for the fact that everyone should stay safe, we run webinars and online events. Then we have a career mentorship program, and just the second cohort started in October. And we also do advocacy on mainly on social media, on Twitter and on LinkedIn. And if we go to the next slide. So what I said already, so we have a Slack community, which has now over 1,200 people signed up, where we exchange experiences and where we just share our journeys and also sometimes challenges and problems we run into. So on Slack, we have different channels dedicated to jobs and also to events. We have a welcome channel where everyone can introduce themselves, and also a shameless self-promo, because sometimes it's also important to step back and also acknowledge that you achieved something, and this is also a good place where others celebrate also your achievements together with you. But also not only this, we also have help groups that if you just about to start out learning coding, you can just ask and drop any questions you have. And we have yes, also specific regional channels. So this allows you to also connect with women in geospatial in your area of the world, and also to share more local events and job postings there. So if you want to sign up for the Slack space and or our mailing list, then you can go to follow this bit.ly link, bit.ly/women in geospatial _sign up. And then the next slide. Yes, we do meetups, webinars, and workshops. Most recently, these are pictures from still last year. So there's even one picture from Geo for Good Summit last year, which was still in person. And more lately, we started a webinar series, and this webinar series is primarily dedicated on career tips and coaching on how you can accelerate your career, and to provide you advice and tips on different topics. So we started, for example, on a webinar, how you can gain a professional confidence, and we had a panel discussion on how you can on different ways to network, and also some advice from professionals that are a bit further in their career journey already. Something similar we do today, but we also had recent webinars specifically on topics, on a more tailored topic, like, for example, how to create a standout CV, which we just had 2 weeks ago. And we are upcoming webinars. We plan one in November about LinkedIn. So how you can use LinkedIn for your career and for your professional advancement. And in November, we plan one specifically on YouTube, how you can actually make use of YouTube in order to accelerate your career. So, I advise you to go to our website, womeningeospatial.org, and go to the webinar series. And there we announce all the upcoming webinars, and also on Twitter and LinkedIn. And the next slide, please. Yes, we also have a mentorship program, which is now in the 2nd year. So the 1st year was quite successful. We had over 190 people applying, but in the end, we could only accept 42 people. And I think we had 17 mentor and peer mentorship groups in the first cohort. And but now this year, we also joined with other networks, for example, African Women in GIS, and now the mentorship program is much bigger. So this year, this mentorship round just started in October. We have now 100 participants over the 32 countries, and they are now put together in 30 peer group and mentorship pairs. And the mentorship program always runs almost a year, from October this year up to next July. And then the next cohort starts again in October 2021. And we have, go back one. So if you want to learn more about the mentorship program, I kindly ask you to go to YouTube, because we have a nice introducing mentorship program video on YouTube. And if you follow the bit.ly link, it brings you to YouTube, and then you can watch the video there. And then we do advocacy and information sharing. So we run a Twitter account and a LinkedIn account where we share jobs, events, geospatial news. We also highlight women in geospatial careers. We have a weekly profile of the week on LinkedIn. And so if you're interested in being featured there, then please join us on and also join our Slack channel. And then you can sign up for being featured there as well. And this is just basically to speak up and raise our voices for more diversity in the geospatial field, and also on geospatial conferences. And the next slide. And yeah, and this is unfortunately still a common picture with in the online and virtual world, like also on the world if we have in-person events. We see too often males or and too less women being asked when it's about expert knowledge and being invited of experts. And one of the recent activities we did and we launched in July this year is a speakers database, because we think that we have to come together. So first of all, we want to provide with the speakers database a platform where women can also show that they are there and they exist and they are experts in something. But at the same time, there is also we want to provide a place where conference organizers can go to, and they find expert women in the geospatial field, because there's often a common excuse, oh yeah, we wanted to invite women, but we just didn't have any names and we didn't know who is there. And so the speakers database is really for both worlds, so for speakers who are ready to speak up and bring out or raise their voice, but on the other side also for conference organizers. But this only also works if you sign up and if you also push yourself a bit out of the comfort zone and say, yes, I have skills and I would like to talk about my projects, what I do. So please go to speakers.womeningeospatial.org and sign up for the speakers database. And the next slide, this is how it looks like when you enter, and you already see we have over 251 amazing women registered all over the world. And yeah, but this is just the beginning, so please register there and show the world that you're there. And yeah, so for now, I hope you got a good overview of what we do. I can only say, go to our website, womeningeospatial.org. You get all the information there. Follow us on Twitter also, or on LinkedIn, or very lately also YouTube. This is just in progress. And also have a look to our speakers database. And yeah, let's make a change together. And I really wish you a wonderful panel discussion, and for later on, please ask as many questions as possible, because we have great speakers there today who are ready to share their journey and their advice. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia. And if any of you are also wanting to grab those links, don't worry, we will share the link to this presentation later, so you can just click on them and you don't have to worry about taking screenshots or typing. So thank you once again for introducing Women in Geospatial. So right now I will be introducing our wonderful speakers. And first up, I would like to introduce Abena Asare-Ansah. She is a remote sensing and GIS analyst at SERSGIS in Accra, Ghana. She holds a Bachelor of Science in Geomatic Engineering from the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. And she was also an intern with SERSGIS and SERVIR West Africa in 2017, where she used Earth Engine to map charcoal production sites in Ghana. Our next speaker is Dr. Lola Fatoyinbo, and she is a physical research scientist at the NASA Goddard Space Flight Center. She holds a PhD in environmental sciences and a bachelor's in biology from the University of Virginia. And two of our current projects include total carbon estimation in African mangroves and coastal wetlands in preparation for red and blue carbon credits, and GEDI Lidar, the Global Ecosystem Dynamics Initiative. So if you have questions about mangroves, coastline, carbon estimation, she's the person to go to. And our final speaker for today is Dr. Keiko Nomura. She is a senior analyst at Space Intelligence Limited in Edinburgh, Scotland, where she is developing cost-effective techniques to produce accurate and timely land cover and biomass maps. She previously worked for UNDP and UN Environment on RED+, which is reducing emissions from deforestation and forest degradation. and she holds a PhD in geosciences from the University of Edinburgh. So let's give a big welcome to all our speakers and thank them for giving us some of their afternoon today to share with us their career journeys and their experiences. So our very first question is, so we can get to know our speakers better. In a nutshell, can you tell us about your career journey to where you are today? Can you share an achievement you're proud of? And if you face any challenges on the way, how did you overcome them? And to answer this first question, we have Dr. Lola Fatoyinbo.
Hi, everyone. It's great to be here, and it's great to see everyone on the videos. Okay, so the first question, can you repeat the question again?
Sure.
How we got here?
Yeah, so in a nutshell, could you tell us a bit about your career journey, how you got here? Are there some achievements you're really proud of or some challenges that you had to overcome along the way?
Sure. Okay, so as Sabrina mentioned, I got my PhD from the University of Virginia, and I live in the Washington, D.C. area, and I work for the NASA Goddard Space Flight Center now. And how did I get here? It's kind of a long, windy story, but essentially I was really blessed to have great mentors and people who saw things in me that I did not see in myself. They really encouraged me and encouraged me really to reach as far and as high as I could, and maybe further and higher than I thought I was able to. Yeah, I think it was really helpful to have mentors and people who were encouraging me, and to have you know, supportive people all around me, whether it's friends, my partner, my parents, things like that. I was very, very much supported and encouraged, even though many people around me didn't quite understand what I was doing from the moment I started graduate school until today. Yeah, so essentially after my PhD, during my PhD, I was lucky enough to go to a conference with my advisor. He would take his students with him to all these conferences. And I met someone who worked at the NASA JPL, which is a NASA center in California. And, you know, we talked, and he was a very nice scientist and encouraged me to, you know, apply for an internship, or to try to see to come visit him and work with him on a project, mapping mangroves. At the time I was doing only field work. And so, yeah, I was able to do the internship. And then from then it just was one step after the other. I got an internship at JPL, then I graduated. I applied for the NASA postdoctoral program fellowship. I got in, I went to JPL. And then after that, I applied for a job at NASA Goddard, which is on the other side of the country. But then I was lucky enough to get that one too. And so here I am now. You had a question about challenges along the way. There were many challenges along the way. Anyone who's in a PhD program knows that it's tough. And there are many things that sometimes have nothing to do with your actual schoolwork that might keep you from getting done. So whether it's, you know, changes in your life in general, it's a long time, and there's lots of challenges. Let me see any specific ones. It's really hard as a woman to deal with, if you're in academia, having to move positions all the time, and having to move to, you know, if you want to advance your career, you're expected to go to a different institution. You're expected to go move somewhere else. And like, you know, I had to move up across the country, even though I was planning on getting married. And so that was really tough. And in my case, I did make the decision to say, okay, I'm going to go for a year. I have to take this job. It's really important, but it was tough. And so that's, you know, one of the reasons why I quit my job at JPL and applied to come back to the East Coast of the US, because I was getting married, I was having my first kid, I was all alone. And so it's like, I can't do this anymore. So lots of personal challenges on the way.
Thank you, Lola. I can definitely, that resonates with me. So I'd like to also now invite Keiko to share about her career journey. Could you tell us a bit more about how you got to where you are, and did you face also different challenges, or are there people who also were important to support you along this journey?
Yeah, sure. Definitely in terms of challenges, like where to pick. But let's start from my career journey. I actually started more of a policy person. I was looking at forest conservation from the policy side and also capacity development for the government. But I made a change. I made a switch to more technical side. And more people, it's more common to make the reverse change. I think more technical people go to more project management, but I did sort of reverse. And the reason for it is that when I was working for the UN, I saw many instances where the data was an issue. And it's not simply like lack of data, it's also understanding of data. And I thought data should be something, compelling evidence and driver for change, but they were rarely presented that way. So coming from non-technical side, I thought maybe, I could contribute to this area from a different perspective with someone with experience, not from the technical side, but from, different policy and biology side. So I guess that's the biggest change in my career. I made that switch. And it wasn't, very straightforward. Writing applications while working, applying for scholarships. It's really daunting, and you simply exhausted at the end of the day. And I thought I couldn't really submit all these required documents on time. But then, as Laura said, I also had a very good support system. I had great friends who just simply said, you can do it, you can do it. So I just went with the flow, or maybe, I can do it. Let's just push it. Let's see if I can do it. So there are, tangible challenges like these time to write applications, or even, getting opportunity to learn, getting research grant to do the research, but also intangible challenges like a mental barrier. Is this really where you belong? So it's really, one way or another, I did ask for help, and people did help me. And if you are not in a supportive environment, you can create one, and surround yourself with a nice group of people who can support you, and you can also support them. And that's how I think I was able to make this transition, and quite happy with where I am. I didn't know I like this more technical side rather than facilitating consultations and talking to the government, but I do love data science and remote sensing. So it's worth a try if you are thinking about making a change in your career.
Thank you, Keiko. And for our final speaker, Abena, would you like to share with us a bit about your career journey?
Yeah, sure. And hello once again to everyone. So it looks like the panelists, they have a lot of experience, and that's very, very good. I mean, I started not too long ago, but I'll still share my brief story. So I also started off at KNUST, Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, and I read bachelor's degree in Geomatic Engineering. And I was exposed to GIS, remote sensing, photogrammetry, surveying. And as I kept going, I realized that I was having keen interest in GIS and remote sensing. I was excited about the fact that points, lines, and polygons were able to use to represent features on the ground. I was excited about the concepts of GIS and all that. So I decided to dive deeper into GIS and remote sensing. And I had people, like all the panelists are saying, I had people around to support this whole agenda of GIS and remote sensing. It was very, very useful. And then I also had the chance to work as a teaching and research assistant, still at the department where I schooled. And I got very close to some of the technicians who were GIS and remote sensing experts. So I learned how to use some of the tools for land use, land cover analysis, and then a whole lot. And it really helped me a lot. And I think it has really brought me this far. And so in 2017, latter part of 2017, I had the opportunity to intern at SERVIR. which is a Center for Remote Sensing and Geographic Information Services. And then I also had the opportunity to still develop my capacity in GIS remote sensing and this geospatial field, and that is how it has been. Talking about the challenges, in my class back in school, we were 117 students, and out of there's only 10 were girls. Just 10 of us were girls, and all the others were guys. So yeah, it was a male-dominated course, and you needed to motivate yourself so that you can still move on with what you were doing. And we also had practical sessions that was quite stressful and tiring. And along the way, I also had an issue with my laptop. I mean, I earlier said I had interest in GIS remote sensing, and so I had an issue with my laptop. I couldn't really do assignments and all. So I took it upon myself to visit the lab, the lab which had the softwares and all, to do my assignments there and then learn more so that I could still catch up with what was going on. So spending a couple of hours on the field and so many hours at the lab was a bit stressful, but then through it all, I had encouragement and I was determined. I really was excited about this whole geospatial thing. So I decided to go in for it, and that has been it so far. Yeah.
Thank you, Abena. So amongst the people, the technicians that you mentioned that you got close to while you were working, were there some women, or were they all also mainly men who were working as technicians?
Okay, we had about 7 of them who were men, and then just about 2 of them who were women. Yeah, so I mean, you still realize that there are a lot of men in the field, and we need more women on board. Yeah, so I was also encouraged by that, and I decided to move on to the geospatial field. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes it's really important, like when you're a student, to see people who are just maybe one step ahead. Like when I was taking my first remote sensing class, seeing that there were some women teaching fellows who were also organizing the lab sessions and giving advice to the current students made me think that, okay, I see someone who's just taken that step. They took that class maybe last year, and now they're a teaching assistant or teaching fellow. Maybe I can do that too. So it's really exciting to see that, along the way you have met people who also inspired you in that sense. Maybe for Keiko and Lola, could you share a bit about these people who stepped in to mentor you? Like what did they do? What makes a good mentor? I think that's a big question on a lot of people's minds.
That's a very good question, and one that I wonder about a lot. And yeah, I just wanted to say to Abena too, listening to her story, I'm so used to not having women around me where I work that I didn't even think about that being a challenge, because I'm just so used to it. It's really, yeah. So I encourage everyone, please stay. We need you. It's very lonely here. So my mentors, yeah, I think what really helped with the mentors that I had was that they saw the potential in me more than what I could already do. They really believed that I had the capability to advance. It wasn't, they weren't so much focused on what I already knew how to do. They were more focused on, we know that you will be able to do this in the future. Like there was some type of, they had a real ability to see things in me that I didn't see, I guess. And maybe it helped in some ways that they were both white men, because they didn't really have this imposter syndrome that I had. And so, they were just like, no, you can do this. This is fine. And they couldn't even relate to what I was feeling. And so, I know it's counterintuitive, but maybe it helped in some way. I don't know. But I think they encouraged me very much so. And yeah, I also I think I loved remote sensing so much because I could see the power in it, and I could see, oh, this is a way that you can do things all over the planet, all over the world. I can be here in the US and really be addressing those questions you know, in countries that I'm interested in. My family is originally from Nigeria. I've always wanted to work there, but it was really hard for me to do that. I was here in the US. And so I said, okay, well, I can actually study Nigeria or West Africa or anywhere on the planet, sitting here in my little graduate student office in Charlottesville, Virginia. So it gave me some hope, I think, too. And they were very encouraging of that, so.
Yeah, and another thing that's really important is that they had also access to those networks that sometimes
oh my gosh,
we as women don't have access to.
Absolutely, and I think that was actually really crucial because they were both well, my graduate school advisor was a very well-established professor. Everyone knew him. Everyone said, okay, if you are this student, this guy's student, you must be good. So they already, that was great. And then similarly, moving to my postdoc or my internships, the people that I was working there, it comes with the, I was a NASA postdoc, it comes with the NASA name. So people automatically assume certain things about you. So that was very helpful, I think. And then, having people who were well-known really be encouraging of you and introducing you to these large networks. It's really important and really crucial. So, something I'm hoping to be able to do and trying to do. And so it's great to be here today, really. I'm really happy that this is happening.
Yeah, that's really great. And I think that's something we're also trying to do in our mentorship program, where at Women in Geospatial, we welcome men to also be part of the mentorship program as mentors, because we recognize that they often are the gatekeepers to some of these networks and can really open the door and help people really advance in their careers. So we need more allies who are able to play that role and introduce their mentees to other people in their network and open doors to opportunities for them. Yeah, Keiko, there's a lot of people positively responding in the chat about your statement about creating a supportive environment around you.
Okay.
Do you have any specific tips for how to do that? I know you said you surrounded yourself with your friends who were really encouraging and supportive, but what else did you do, or do you think people can do to really create that supportive environment?
Yeah, I'm really aware not everyone is very lucky as us in terms of having super supportive supervisor who believed in us when we couldn't believe in ourselves, right? And I think the great mentor is someone who can really believe that you can do it when you don't think you can do it. And if someone who's so established can believe that you can do it, you must be able to do it. But not everyone is in a very nice, group of people or healthy lab. I know these cases. Some of my friends are in these situations too. I mean, the worst case, you can change the lab. You can change your supervisor, but also you can also create reach out people in your area. In the pandemic, we do that remotely anyway. So you can create that kind of environment remotely, as well as slightly wider group of people. Not exactly maybe people are not working on your area of expertise. Maybe it's not the biomass mapping in tropical Central or Southeast Asia, but just open up that field and simply be friend with people who are in the similar situation as you are in academia or in organization where you feel a bit lonely. So yeah, there are so many ways to create that environment. So don't worry if you are not in a good environment, you can really, really create it. I'm very active on Twitter, and there are so many people, have said to me, thank you so much for the tips you give. And that really makes me happy. And I think I'm creating a good environment for myself too by doing so.
Yeah, Keiko. And actually, you, Lola, and Abena are all really active on Twitter. And we know from that, it's clear that, science communication is also something that's really important to all three of you. Could you also share a bit about what is the Twitter community like? I think some people on this meetup might not currently be online on Twitter. I know I wasn't really active until last year when Emil/BZGeo encouraged me to post more and really explore this community. And it's been very helpful. So I'm curious to hear about how you all got started on Twitter and how you found it's been helpful for you in your career journey.
Okay, so I started in March 2019. Okay, and it was actually BZGeo, Emil, and Rebecca who told me about Twitter and what's actually going on Twitter. So I decided to join this community, and then I realized that there's a whole lot going on there. People post a lot about their products, great things they are doing, and it actually encourages me. I come there to look at what they are doing, go back to GE and go and try out some course to see if I can develop products for Africa or Ghana. And I think it has been very, very great. So there's a lot on Twitter, actually. There's really, really a lot of knowledge to acquire on Twitter. And then still on Hiko's things on their tips. I actually sent her a screenshot of an error I was having a challenge with last year in August. I don't know if she even remembers, but I told her, sent her a message and told her, Keiko, I'm having a little issue trying to run this code in Earth Engine. And she just gave me an answer to that, and it really, really helped. So thumbs up, Keiko, for that. You are doing very well. Yeah.
I second that. I also really enjoy Keiko's Earth Engine tips, I have to say. I've used them a few times, and yeah, they've been great. In my case for Twitter, I think it kind of I kind of slowly started using it more and more when I realized that there was this whole geospatial community on Twitter, and it's nice because it's so international and so applications focused. And so, yeah, it's been really helpful. It's been really nice. I feel like people are using it more and more. And so it's, for me, actually the best way of finding finding out what's happening, like new papers that are published, new science that comes out, projects that people are doing. Yeah, it's so interactive. I feel like on a science communication side and on a just finding new collaborators and meeting new people side, it's been really, really helpful and very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad that you can find my tips useful, and I hope I don't reply to all of the questions people send to me, so please don't feel offended if I don't answer to you. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Now my work is a bit busy, but yeah, I love Twitter because it's just so easy to see information coming in and out, and it's just so live, and there's limits on words, so you don't have to read a lot to get the information. But I started Earth Engine tip on Twitter because that was, I think, back in 2018 or 19. I forgot. That's when I started to use Earth Engine. There weren't many materials about Earth Engine or tutorials back in the day. So my supervisors and I were kind of exploring and figuring it out. So whenever I found something, even like very small thing, I thought, oh my God, I have to tell the world about this. That's gonna change, other researcher like me, maybe their life gets a little bit easier. So that's how I started just, broadcasting tips that I came across learning it. And yeah, it's been great. I like the timeliness of Twitter, because I also improve as I learn. So whatever I published before won't really come up lately. So that's nice. I can always improve and produce something better for the community to use too.
So since we're starting to talk about Earth Engine, I'm really curious how each one of you started using it and how you really, what steps do you take to keep getting better at it? I think for me, I was really lucky because I had a professor who was teaching a course called Geospatial Software Design, Professor Dana Tomlin. And that was actually my first real programming course. I learned to program by learning JavaScript and Python in that class for Earth Engine. And yeah, but I know a lot of people learn Earth Engine from scratch on their own, looking up tutorials, practicing, trying out example scripts. So I'm curious about how you all got started and what tips do you have for, how to keep getting better at it?
I could go. I started using Earth Engine because actually when Earth Engine first started, it must be 5 or 6 years ago now, the team came to my office and they gave a tutorial. And so we thought, oh my gosh, this is amazing. This is going to be great. And I didn't really have time to learn how to use Earth Engine. So I gave it to my postdoc and some interns. They really started digging deep into it and got really good very quickly. And so fast forward a few years, I went to 1 or 2 of the Geo for Good summits. Actually, I only went to 1. And I took some of the tutorials again, and it was just amazing. And every year, they keep adding new things. But I never had time to really dig deep into it. So I think really what has helped me is that I actually have some students and interns, and they write their code, and I'm like, please just share your code with me so I can figure out how this works. And so by going through their code and trying to adapt it to whatever it was that I was trying to do, I kind of retaught myself again and again. And then the more you use it, the better you get. So just spend several long hours trying to figure out why I have an error and ask some people and then just get back on it somehow. But again, I think having lots of tutorials and tools that are online now and people who share their code through the Google developers, Earth Engine developers, listserv has been really helpful.
Yeah, don't be afraid of errors, right? That's a key. Yes, Abena, you have something to share?
Yeah, so I actually heard about Google Earth Engine during one postgraduate class. So one lecturer invited me to his class and was introducing Google Earth Engine. I wasn't a master's student by then. I was still having my national service with the department. And growing up, I had always had this mindset that coding or programming was for guys. It wasn't a ladies' thing. So, I had closed my mind on coding, and well, I still sat in the class, but I left the class confused, and I was wondering, how am I going to go through this? Do I really need to learn coding, or I'll just be a user and then just use tools and products that are developed by developers? So in 2017, the latter part of 2017, when I started my internship at SERVIR, I realized that here at SERVIR, they use Google Earth Engine for image processing and analysis. And then I realized that I couldn't run away from coding anymore. So I had to change my mindset and decided to start learning so that I could also, make or create solutions to certain problems and then make impact as well. So that was how mine also started. Yeah.
Yeah, my story is very similar to Sabrina's. I started with either Python and Earth Engine. And I think the reason I was able to finish PhD on time was because of Earth Engine, not Python. But how to be better? You really have to enjoy it first. You are doing remote sensing because you're fascinated with these images from the satellite. So, don't forget that you like doing this. So look at why you are interested. But also, like, what I want to emphasize is that, it's more important to understand what you are doing than knowing how to write a code. If your area is forest fire or flooding or landslide, you have knowledge about geophysical conditions or, vegetations and how they reflect on certain sensors. And that needs to be translated into the code. And so if you have an ideas, okay, I think this index works better for the type of analysis I'm interested in, then try to figure out, okay, how I can translate that, how I can write that in a code. So even if your code is not fancy, by changing just one index out of many features for your classification, for example, I think that's already an improvement. I think that's already something you can call it your own, because you believe this index works better than the other, so I'm going to change that. So don't forget about the subject matter that you are dealing with. Code is just a language to process it, so it's more useful, like what you want to do, and just to use the code and figure it out how you can do it.
Absolutely. I think that definitely also resonates with me, because when you're writing code, you're basically, in a way, writing a recipe or writing a list of instructions. And so if you can start there, when you know what are the steps you need to take, then you can figure out each step of the way how to write that instruction so that Earth Engine can understand it, or your computer program can understand it. So I think breaking things down step by step, looking up questions on Stack Exchange has been very helpful, because oftentimes if you have a question, probably somebody else has already asked the same question. You can take a look at answers, copy some code that somebody has posted as an answer, modify it to fit your script, and then keep building from there. So yeah, and then step by step, you begin to understand how things work. And it's like learning a language. At first, probably not very good at it, but then with practice, with time, it gets easier and easier. So yeah, don't be afraid if it's really difficult at first and you don't understand anything. That's totally normal. Yeah, so we actually have quite a few questions on the chat on Slido. So I'm going to ask one last question to the panelists, and then I'll turn this time over to Julia so that she can start moderating the Q&A. And the question that I'm going to ask is, how can we make the geospatial industry a more welcoming and inclusive place for women, especially, and women of color, people from underrepresented genders? Like, how can we, really make this a place where, we see people who look like ourselves and we feel like we can stay here and are welcome here?
That's a big question. Yeah, well, so in terms of representation, it's definitely so important that I cannot empathize this more. Like, I worked for a science festival here in the museum, National Museum of Scotland 2 years ago, and we got lots of school children coming to the festival. And after they participated, we asked them, like, did you like it? What did you like most? And one of their comments was, well, I liked it because I met real scientists, which was a really cute comment. But what that comment also indicate is that some students are not surrounded by scientists on a daily basis. There is no scientist in their immediate family or extended family. And imagine then once a year, you go to a science festival and there's no woman in there. They will quickly create their own definition of who the scientist is and who can be the scientist. So it's really important for us to be there and represent. Even if you are not good with kids, they really don't care your shyness. So it's okay, just be there and stand there. It can be fun. So I do think representation is hugely important at like even early education. And from sort of recruitment side, like, because I work for a company, so we are trying to recruit more people. And I noticed a few things that if any employer watching, I have one message for you. If you have a word in TOR or advert, like we are looking for someone with strong background in something, just cut those adjectives like strong out two reasons. Because one, you are not going to take their word for it. You're going to assess the level of expertise by yourself. And two, there's a real consequence of using such word. You may be filtering out women and other minorities who actually have strong background, but don't assess themselves or are not in a position to be able to assess that they have a strong background. So just cut those out, because you are losing a lot of candidates by having that word. And the message to people who are applying for positions, if you see a word like that, it's easy to say, ignore it, be more confident, but that's not going to be my message. My message is, by applying for such position, you are not misleading the employer. You know why? Because you will be writing what you have done and what you can do clearly in your CV and cover letter. So by applying for this position, you are not wasting their time, you are not misleading, you are not making fool of yourself, because it's their job to articulate what they mean by strong. So don't be discouraged, really. Just be honest, and you can still apply for these positions.
Thank you, Keiko.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Keiko. I'm just going to emphasize what she was just saying. For one, I'm going to take strong out of every application that I might be writing, because I never thought about that on my side. But I just want to also reiterate to everyone here is to just apply to all these things that you're seeing. Even if you think you're underqualified or you're not there yet, it doesn't hurt to apply. You might be applying for a position, you might not get the job, but I have to say that I get so many CVs from people and I think, oh, this person is maybe, I can't hire them for this job. But in the future, when something else comes up, I might remember that they sent me their application, or I might remember, oh, there was that student I talked to 2 years ago. They would be perfect. Maybe they've graduated by now. So it never hurts to, I think in my case, there might be, circumstances where it might hurt, but I would say if you think that you are even remotely qualified for a position, do apply, because I think, men do not have that same, fear or self-awareness where they might say, oh, we're not going to apply because I might not be, they're just toss your name in the hat. You never know what's going to happen. And the same thing goes for proposals. If you're writing proposals, if you're writing, any type of application that you're doing, one thing that I think has helped me a lot is that I have failed many, many times at what I'm doing. Like, I have written so many proposals for graduate school, for graduate fellowship, for research funds. I write probably 10 proposals a year now still. And now many of them are getting funded. But when I started, I would write 10. And if one of those 10 got funded, I would be lucky. If if I get a 10% of what I'm throwing out there is funded, that's good. Having 10 to 20% success is normal in my field when you're applying for things. So you gotta just keep applying. And as you do it more and more, you get better at it, and then you can just recycle old things that you've written. So yeah, I definitely encourage people, just keep trying, and don't be afraid of failing. Don't be afraid of failing the interview or not getting the job or not getting the proposal. I think it's really important to keep trying, keep applying, and then you can use hopefully you get some feedback, and then you can use that for the next time.
It only takes one yes. You can have 10 no's, but you just get one yes, and that's great. Thank you, Lola. And Abena?
All right, so I'll also add to all that Keiko and Lola have said. And I would say that looking at Africa and Ghana specifically, I think it would be very good if clubs related to Google Earth Engine or geography or GIS are established in these schools, so that they'll be able to develop their interests at that age. And then as they start climbing their career, they'll be able to appreciate whatever is in their field. And then also, like we have all said, let's keep on spending some more time on Twitter, and then so that we'll be encouraged a lot about what is being done on Twitter. And then I'd like to say that Dr. Lola and Dr. Katrina Kalembe, women who inspire GIs, we look up to them and we can identify with them. We know that they're really out there doing a lot, and it really encourages us. So don't give up Lola, don't give up Dr. Katrina Kalembe, and all the African women in GIs who are doing great things. It's really impacting us a lot, and I'm really grateful to have you in this field. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And now I'm going to hand this time over to Julia to moderate the Q&A. It looks like we have some really, really good questions there. So I'm going to start sharing the screen for our Slido.
Yes, thank you, Sabrina. And so before we start, I just would like to invite everyone. So we have already a full set of questions, but in case you have any questions for our panelists, then go to slido.com and enter #EarthEngine, and then you can post your question there. So I tried to have, so there are some questions, I think they've already been discussed a bit. So I tried to focus on the ones that bring some new insights and some new perspectives from Keiko, Abena, and Lola. So I think the first one is quite interesting. So how do you balance your career and family time also with travel required for fieldwork and conferences?
Should I go first? I travel a lot.
Yes.
Again, I'm very fortunate, and then I have a very good support system around me, and otherwise I would never be able to do it. My husband helps a lot, my mother helps a lot, and I also pay for childcare. Otherwise, there would be no way that I would be able to do this. I also, like, how do I prioritize? You know, what I think the best advice that one of the really some good advice that I got was that your career is not just happening now. Like, someone told me, this was a woman who had 5 children and she had just won some great award. She was really high up at NASA, and she said, you know, I had my children pretty young, and then and I had 5 kids, and so for many years I wasn't able to do any of the field work. When everyone was going on a conference to Australia, I couldn't go. When, you know, there was so many years where I just missed out on things because I couldn't go. But then my kids got older and I was still working, you know, but this time she said, you know, it's not like you stop working and your career stops when you're 50 years old. She said, just, you know, my career really took off when I was 50, when my kids were older, and when I was, you know, when I was able to do all of these things. And I thought, oh, she's like, we're in it for the long game. You don't have to do it all now. And I said, oh, okay, that makes me, I was like, okay, so breathe. She said, you know, enjoy your kids when you can. They're only little at some point. You know, they don't stay little for long. You will miss out on field trips. You will miss out on career advancing things, which is, you know, it sucks. But the reality is that sometimes you just have to be in it for the long game, and not lose sight of that. And luckily now we're seeing that there's, you know, we have access to all these virtual things. And then honestly, when my kids were really little, I would just bring them with me. You know, I took advantage of the fact that I didn't have to pay for a plane ticket until they were 2 years old, and tried to get childcare wherever I was going. And that helped a lot. And then, you know, learning to say no, and sometimes just going and getting organized and actually taking that trip was really important.
Yes, that's a great advice, I think. So I think the fact is that it's not working without external help, and also just to admit it. And also I like your story about your colleague and saying, yes, it's like you have to see it in a longer time span, and not that it's like there's one year decisive in your career. Keiko, do you have some advice for us?
I think Laura's advice was great. It's been a while since I traveled. You know, it's more like I'm really, really stuck here, and it's more. But you know, I think the good thing is we can do a lot of things remotely, and it's definitely helping my colleagues with kids, and they are not appearing as much as they were in March. So I think everyone is getting used to remote working and conferences, and things are changing very fast. So we just have to like adjust ourselves to how to do career in this new era.
Yes. And Abena, do you have some tips on how to balance travel and family and private life? And
Well, I'm not married yet, and I do not have kids at the moment, but I think Lola has shared very great tips. So you just have to go by that. Then always make sure you have the support around you so that your career won't fail. Yeah.
yeah, so we have another question, which was also upvoted quite highly. And how do you prioritize what you take on when you are building your career? Do you have any tips on, or also on how you can share how you prioritized specific options, opportunities you got, and probably for some you chose the opportunities and others you probably didn't focus so much on it?
I think the question can lead to many different answers, but just from speaking from my experience, like I have list of things I want to learn because new things come up every day. So in terms of prioritizing that, I do try to get start on things that has a little more overlaps with other things I'm doing. So it's more like a strategic choice. You know, okay, I have a few projects using that technique, so maybe if I learn this one, maybe I could also apply to the one I'm doing it right now, or this is really hot right now in the community, and I really want to try and have a say about it. So, you know, instead of something doing completely independent from what you're already doing, I think it's good to find, you know, something that overlaps with what you're already doing. Maybe that is a one way to prioritize, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good advice. Lola or Abena, do you have something to say how you prioritized opportunities?
Yeah, I think I'll go with what Keiko said. So she said it all. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with what Keiko said about prioritizing and about, you know, essentially thinking strategically about what it is that you're already working in, and then kind of, you know, what you're interested in, and trying to kind of, you know, make sure that your projects have some overlap, so that you can use whatever you've learned from one project in the next one.
Okay, thank you. So another question, which now brings us to diversify the workplace. So do you have any tips or advice on how one can advocate for gender equity within the workplace, and also any tips on speaking up to superiors or supervisors, or probably it's also about creating that group of supporters Keiko mentioned at the beginning, probably also how to find mentors and sponsors in order to make a change.
I think that is a really hard question to answer for me. I think sometimes what's helpful is just bringing it up to people. You know, sometimes people don't notice actually how undiverse their workplace is. And so when I've noticed around me that sometimes people don't, it's not really something that they think about that much. And so when you bring it up, people might say, oh yeah, you're right. And it's like you're opening people's eyes and they look around them. So I think it's really important if you're in a position where you're able to hire people, you want to be sure that, that gives you some power. And so that's something that I try to do. I try to make sure that I'm, hiring for a more diverse workplace. But it's also really important to mention it to your supervisors, I think. And it's good when you work in a workplace that appreciates that. Yeah, it's a tough question always.
And I think speaking up for other people is very helpful, especially when you're a bystander and you notice something. Oftentimes, if you are speaking up for yourself as a woman, that's seen negatively. But if you speak up for other people, then it's something that you're expected to do. And then people are more willing to listen to that. And it can show up, gender inequity can show up in really small and kind of sneaky ways. For example, does everyone in the office have the same amount of space? I used to work in an open plan office where for some reason only the men had shelves and the women didn't have any shelves to put their things on. So, small things like that are examples of inequity. And if you notice something, bring it up nicely. Sometimes people don't see it, but when you speak up, then they're like, oh wait, why is it that way? And then hopefully, your supervisor or somebody will try to take action to change it. Or you can take action to change it yourself too.
Yeah, and actually one thing that I just remembered as you were talking, Sabrina, is it is really important to sometimes it is easier to speak up for someone else, as you mentioned, and also to encourage someone else. So something that I was doing with a colleague of mine that we read about, we read an article actually in the Washington Post about what women in the Obama White House were doing, is that they would, encourage, if you're in a meeting and you're there with your colleague who is a woman and gets talked over, or, her point is, she makes a point, what we would then do is to say, oh yes, X, I really agree with your point. I just want to mention again what XYZ said and bring it up. It's really important, kind of reinforcing what they said. And it actually works.
Yes, I would agree also that basically, yes, sometimes it's also not good to just be very direct in addressing the issues, because some colleagues who don't see any problem with it, or there will be colleagues who say everything is equal, there is no inequality. And so I think with this kind of colleagues, and also if you are in meetings, for example, if you also realize that maybe women have less speaking time than men often, then just address questions to women colleagues. So just instead of addressing it directly, the problem, also try to make just some small changes, and in order that women also get a bit more voice and get a bit more encouraged in the workplace. And I just want to share one quote I read recently. It was from Meryl Streep, and she was saying, oh, are we still talking about diversity and women equality? And you will note, or you will encounter some questions along your way saying, oh no, not again this topic, and oh no, not again. And just don't get tired, because yes, as long as it's not equal, we will talk about it. And this is also what Meryl Streep said. So we have another question, I think, which is probably, I will take the third one of the dashboard, is that related to COVID, do you have a feeling how the pandemic affected women in geospatial, or did it lead to further inequalities that became apparent between men and women plus. Do you have any takes on that?
Okay, so let me start with this. So considering Ghana and currently where I work at SERVIR, I don't think COVID affected us because we're working remotely from home and we had all the resources available. So we didn't really have an issue with COVID. Yeah, so it didn't really affect us. Yeah.
Okay. Lola or Keiko, do you have any take on that?
Sure, I can step in. I think COVID has, you know, in our countries where we have been, in those countries where we've been under some sort of a lockdown or really, there's been, you know, schools have been closed, especially, it's been really challenging, especially here in the US. And I think it's just brought out kind of more disparities and a whole range of challenges, because what I'm seeing is, you know, for people who might, you know, for women or who are home with kids, for example, and have to take on a lot of the household duties that we were maybe not taking on because our kids were at school. It's really hard. But on the other side, I'm also seeing that, you know, if you don't have kids, people are just have so much work. Instead of having less work, it feels like the workload has gone up for a lot of people. And so I feel like it's been really hard for everyone, essentially, whether you're, you know, with your family and have children, or even those people who maybe don't have, or not with their families, and they are then dealing with, you know, the pandemic of loneliness and having this, being in this overworked state, because now you have all this time to be home and do all of these projects and you're basically working around the clock. So there's a whole range of issues, I think. And yeah, it's been quite challenging.
Yeah, I just agree with that.
Yes, I think this COVID-19 situation catapulted us into a new normal, which we just have to find a way how to manage everything. I think this is a question that has been repeated several times, and it's asking about specifically on advice you have for people in the early career stages looking to find a new role in the remote sensing field. And also specifically, do you think a PhD is required?
I would say not required, but then I don't speak for everyone. We have recently hired a new junior analyst with no PhD, no masters. What I care is really like what you can do, and you know, can you show that you can do? So those things. So degree is one way to show that you can do these things, but not the only way, really. So, and I think it's great during remote sensing. I think that's an exciting field. There should be more and more opportunities coming up. So you should feel excited, but you know, just never stop learning, because things are happening every day, and every day amazing technologies are coming up. So that's one thing you need to keep your eye out.
Any take from Lola or Abena?
I agree. I don't think you need to have a PhD to be in the geospatial field. If you're interested in science and research, then of course it helps to have an advanced degree, but I don't think it's a requirement. I do encourage more women to go to graduate school and to get their PhDs, though.
Oh,
Yeah, so
yes.
currently, yeah, sorry, Julia. Currently,
No, Abena.
Currently, I do not have my PhD, but I still try to utilize whatever whatever tools and whatever resources I have to be able to solve challenging problems in the environment. So like Keiko and Lola have said, I don't think PhD is required. You just need the right kind of knowledge and the support around so that you'll be able to move on. Yeah, so that's what I have to add.
Okay, thank you. So I have another question because I think the one that is here, so what has helped you to get where you are, I think we discussed this a bit. Another question, what I think also, because we are on Geo for Good Summit and Google Earth Engine, do you have any advice you could give for women and anyone who are just getting started in GIS and Google Earth Engine? So how did you also keep you motivated through the learning process with Earth Engine and probably also coding, I'd say?
We're always figuring out like who's going to go first, but I think
Yeah.
Laura is ready.
Well, I can't see you anymore in the gallery, so I can't figure it out. Advice for getting started in GIS and Earth Engine. I mean, I think in my case, what really helps is to, I use GIS and Earth Engine as a tool. It's not it's a tool to get the answer about what I'm interested in. It's not that I'm just interested in GIS and Earth Engine. So what really helps me is, trying to figure out what it is that I'm trying to do. Like, am I trying to make a land cover map of a specific site or a specific ecosystem or something like that? So then I will look up tutorials on how to do that, or maybe see if there's any code that anyone has written that I can modify to do that. Speaking of which, I guess I'll put a little plug that we have an RSET training coming up for using Google Earth Engine to map mangroves, starting November 5th. So if you're interested, please sign up. But I think there are now so many tools online. Tutorials have really helped me. It's like very specific, it's short. It's like how do I map land cover, for example, and then just go through all of the steps of the tutorial rather than learning, how all of the tips and tools that are in Earth Engine, like taking it in small chunks has been really helpful for me.
Yeah, I agree with that. There are a lot of materials online you can follow. But if you feel a little bit like tired or not feeling motivated, it's always good to pick an area you are very familiar with. It could be the area you did your field work, could be the area you grew up in. You know a lot about it. So you can try with like, if it's me, like different sensors or satellite and see how different they look. Depending on what you're looking for. So try to entertain yourself. And, I remember this wasn't the parking lot when I was little, go back, Landsat, if that's really the case. Just, ask yourself always like fun questions for you to keep using these things.
Okay, so I would also say that try and get a mentor. That's very, very necessary. Get a mentor, someone who is an expert in your field of interest, so that when you are down or when you are frustrated, you can just talk to the mentor and then he or she will be able to lift you up. So just get a mentor and ask relevant questions. Ask questions a lot. The more you ask questions, the more you are opening up your mind for answers and more knowledge. And so as you get a mentor and ask questions, try as much as possible to share this knowledge with the younger people. In my case, I had interns and national service personnel around, and I took it upon myself to teach or share the knowledge in Google Earth Engine so that they'll be able to appreciate and then know what Google Earth Engine is about. And then they can also produce some land use, land cover maps, and other data sets. So just share the knowledge, even as you are mentored, and then I think it will go a long way to help you. Yeah.
And I think one last tip is to start building a portfolio of projects or even just homework assignments that you have done over time if you're still a student or you're just starting out. And keep this portfolio. It can be as simple as a picture of a map, a screenshot of some code you wrote with a few sentences describing what the project was about. And it's very useful when you apply for jobs to show this portfolio. You can put it on a website, you can put it in a folder, like a Dropbox or a Google Drive folder, and just share that folder. And also for you, if you have imposter syndrome sometimes, look at your own portfolio, and if your mind tells you, oh no, you can't do this, just look at the portfolio and say, actually, no, yes, I've done this before, it can be done. It was difficult, but I learned it and I managed to do it. So it's also very encouraging for yourself.
Yes, and with this, I think I would hand over to Sabrina, because our session will be soon over. There are many more questions, which we unfortunately don't have time to respond yet or today. But as we said, please follow Keiko, Abena, and Lola on Twitter. Get in touch with them if you have more questions. And thank you for joining today. But I hand over now to Sabrina.
Thank you, Julia. And again, I'd like to offer everybody, give a big round of applause. Thank you to Keiko, Abena, and Lola for their advice and their wisdom. Please stay in touch. Look for us on Twitter. We can keep our discussion going there. And take the next step. We have 3 wonderful speakers today who took the time and took the step to be a panelist. We encourage you as well to think about taking that step, register on the speakers database, and we hope to see you at some event somewhere online in the future. And so thank you, follow us, and let's stay in touch. So thank you everybody again.
Thank you. I just saw that someone asked for the slides for today. I will post this link to the slides in the chat, and we will also share it on Twitter, and then you can get access to the slides.
And we can also send another follow-up email, so you all get it online. All right, so with this, I'm going to end the session, and thank you all once again for joining us, and have a great rest of the Geo4Good Summit. Thanks again.
Thank you, Sabrina.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.